Hi Didi, welcome to the first show of the new year. And on that note, let me first wish you a very happy new year 2021.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and wishing you as well as your family a very happy new year, and hoping things to be better from what it was in 2020.
I agree. I agree. So 2020, I think, despite all the challenges, we were able to get some sport under the belt. Be it some Grand Slam tennis, be it cricket towards the later half of the year. And I think kudos to West Indies and England for really setting it up very nicely because
Yes,
the first one is uh, it is always the riskiest. You don't know what are the challenges, and as this bio bubble driven travel and sport is happening, we are also now listening stories about how it is taking a toll on the mental health of players. And I'm sure that you must have seen the news circling around Rohit Sharma, Rishabh Pant. All of these were
yes,
dining
I
out, and
do. I do. I do. Yeah.
so it's an apparent
I think as we speak, there's some news which is circulating around the BCCI
okay.
asking these four players to remain in isolation.
Yeah, I agree. So basically, the point is that something as innocuous as possibly going out and having a meal. Obviously, it's also a chance whenever a team goes abroad, it is a chance for the team also to immerse not just in the sport but also in what the country has to offer in that sense. I know that
Correct.
in today's time, possibly these boundaries have shrunk a lot because, globally now people are traveling a lot more than what they used to, say, 20 years ago. But still, you cannot take away the charm of a away trip from a sports person, at least because it allows them the chance to get out of the hotel and then take a really nice fancy break, enjoying some good time, either with teammates or with family. Nonetheless, so on that note, I thought great roundup to the year. It was a brave year for the sport in general, specifically lawn tennis, cricket, and I'm sure other sports as well. So just will open it to you, Didi, for very briefly, if you could give your summary, your thoughts on sports in general, how 2020 treated it, and how do you kind of see, all sports going forward in 2021?
2020, it started off with a bang, right? For India, especially with the women's team reaching the World Cup final, and absolutely brilliant. And of course, Australia were tremendous in the final, and then of course, the Australian Open happened with Djokovic, you know, for the umpteenth time in his career, coming back and winning a slam, and then of course you had the whole catastrophe of COVID hitting place, and most of the things that happened were like you react to something reactive, and then eventually you realize that it's much bigger than what it we thought it to be, right? The Olympics got cancelled for the
Yeah,
first time since 1940, if I am not mistaken.
yeah,
Right, 45, yeah, 40, uh, or rather since the World War II, with the Euro getting cancelled and all of those things getting cancelled. And yesterday evening I went out with a friend, near at a Momo place in Guwahati, and I was this is near my school, not far from my school, and I was talking to the person, how were you affected by COVID, and he said that for 6 months I had to shut down my shop. Right, I opened in October, and you imagine he was saying I employ four people, and uh, the lives of people have been turned upside down. So many of us, in the corporate space, are working from home now, right? And if you imagine sport, and we're talking about professional sport here, right? There are people on. We've seen reports of footballers doing Swiggy or service for food delivery to survive.
yeah,
So sport was hit tremendously, and the good thing is that you correctly mentioned England starting the whole trend of and you have to give it to the West Indies as and Pakistan, who traveled to England to play. in the peak of COVID, I would say at that time, and set the tone. And I think somebody recently tweeted, I think Joy Bhattacharya recently tweeted that you have to give credit to the IPL to the authorities of the IPL to conduct an event like the IPL so smoothly in the middle of pandemic, right? And of course, with EPL and all other leagues getting started, normalcy has resumed. And one of my friends gave a very nice example to summarize how our effect or our approach to COVID has changed. He was in Afghanistan, and he told me a very nice story around the fact that imagine you are in Calcutta, right? And imagine uh, you know uh, a bomb which drops near you. What
Yeah,
will be your reaction, right? You will perhaps not come out of your house for the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But he was talking about the fact that uh, kids in Kabul are playing on the streets with bombs, getting because they're used to it. And
yeah,
our reaction to COVID has also somehow become similar to what my friend was trying to explain. And I think the lives that has been lost, we can't replace them, but we're hoping with the vaccines getting out, things will come back to normal.
absolutely.
2020 ended very well for the cricketing world, especially for India with winning the test in MCG and all those things. So as 2021 progresses, I think the first thing that I want to share is, Saurav Ganguly must recover fast. That's
Yes.
as lovers of the game. We hope Dada, uh,
What I hear
passes
is
this test. And
it is a mildish heart attack, so hopefully
yes,
he should be
so
fine.
just hope that he recovers. Without a doubt, the greatest cricket mind, one of the greatest cricket minds of the country. And a man who took charge at the start of the century to change Indian cricket, um, just
I
turning it upside
completely.
down from where
I
it.
don't think that. First of all, I think that Saurav Ganguly is a person who loves to challenge status quo, and he's always ahead of the game. He's someone who is willing to take criticism, but he's a punter, and he will take the right punts. If it was not for him, possibly we would not have seen revolutionizing of Test cricket opening in the modern era. What Sehwag did to Test cricket was basically, I think it is the gift of Saurav Ganguly, or bringing in clinical finishers like Yuvraj Singh, the big hitting players, and backing them up consistently and stuff like that. So obviously, I think full marks to him as a captain, and then now even as an administrator, the way he deals with things and everything. There is a, I
Of course,
think he has a
he's a
penchant
brilliant.
for, yeah,
He's a born leader, and I just want to share one thing that I also think that he's the best voice in Indian cricket.
yeah,
If you listen to his commentary, he brings around such a beautiful mix of analysis, excitement, subtleness around what to speak, when to speak. And Ganguly and Nasir Hussain remain my personal favorite, commentators when they're on air. So commentary's losses, administration's gain. It's a different thing altogether. He's too talented a person, and just hope that he gets well soon. But I want to start, the whole 2021 discussion with a note that it's a book that I was reading today afternoon, and the book is called. You can see the book, right? I don't know if you can. It's called A Million Broken Windows: The Magic and Mystique of Bombay Cricket.
hmm,
It's by senior respected writer Makaran Waingankar. Uh, in one of the chapters, the author talks about the fact, and he talks about the fact that Bombay cricket is known for its batting, right?
yeah,
Historically,
yeah.
right? You have, Vijay Merchant, Sunil Gavaskar, Sachin Tendulkar, whatever you name, right?
So the joke in my
Dilip Vengsarkar.
hometown was that if there is a cur
Yeah,
in the title, then it's got to be a brilliant batsman and from Mumbai. So that was the
yes,
joke in my hometown.
absolutely. Now, I was reading this chapter, and a couple of paragraphs I'll read out for you. It says that it goes like this. So basically, they're talking about the fact that in our mind, we prioritize Bombay for batting.
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But Bombay also has bowlers. Uh, uh, and then the author talks about this fact. We first have to accept the fact that Bombay did not produce many bowlers who went on to thrive in the national team.
Hmm.
The more difficult task is to explore the reasons or contexts that explain why that was the case and still continues to be the case. This is what I attempt to do in this chapter. However, before we dive off at the deep end, let us also recognize the problem of producing international quality bowlers is not unique to Bombay. It has been the history of Indian cricket. The problem accentuates in overseas conditions. And today, this was written some years back,
Yeah.
and today at the dawn of 2021, or rather at the onset of 2021, as we sit down and discuss, you know, Indian cricket or cricket in general and sport in general, nothing gives me more happiness to, see these lines, and the author himself will be so proud that, we are sitting at a situation where with we are replacing bowlers like literally at will
It's
and
almost
winning
like
test
a
matches abroad.
yeah. It's almost like a video game that you lose one life, but you do get another. Uh,
Yeah.
so it in real life it doesn't really happen in that way. I mean, my imagination leaves me. I know that England's got a little bit of a depth in their bowling, but then we should also be cognizant of the fact that two of their leading bowlers, James Anderson and Stuart Broad, who possibly are the most lethal, bowling combination in the world cricket right now in the red ball arena for sure. But uh, how much longer will they play? Right? They are going to be around for possibly a couple of good more years, right? And then after that, England will really have to, look into its tanks and see, because with Broad and Anderson, even with the lack of pace sometimes, but the kind of skill and art that they have, they make they make up for it. So they're legends, no doubt about it. So, but I think England's got a little bit of a bowling depth. Australia, I know that James Pattinson is there. uh,
Yes.
South Africa
In
is
fact, New Zealand's bowling lineup is very, very good.
yeah.
Very, very good, especially with
See,
Neil Wagner and
we will find out, I think New Zealand more on the subcontinental pitches. I know that New Zealand is a very disciplined bowling unit. It always has been a very
yes.
disciplined and a very hard working bowling unit, no doubts about it. But I think that even Neil Wagner and all of that, if they come and play on subcontinental pitches, uh, in the kind of heat that there is, with the kind of bounce that there is, or the lack of it rather, we will see that for how long can they continue the short pitch bowling barrage. I mean, it might or might not work. I might be proven wrong and stuff like that. But by standard of perceived quality of bowling depth, I think India ranks right at the top, at least in the top two for sure in the world right now.
I would place India at number one primarily because of one reason.
Yeah,
India is performing well in the SENA countries,
yeah,
and at home, Indian bowlers are unplayable.
yeah, yeah.
So you bring in a subcontinent condition, you bring in non-subcontinent condition. Indian bowlers are effective everywhere, right?
So Didi, that
So
that brings my attention to one of the another important thing that happened a few days ago, which was that ICC declared the Test team of the decade. They also declared the ODI and the T20s, because the flavor of the season is the red ball, which I also always have believed is. Uh, I get the max fascination when I watch Test cricket, and I'm sure that you will also reciprocate the. There is no joy more than the joy of seeing a batsman, hobbling in the crease, and the fast bowlers really making a mess of their technique, or the lack of it. So, what are your views on the Test team of the decade that ICC has chosen? Uh, just a couple of things that I would like to throw in is that first, the choice of Virat Kohli as the captain of that team, with the presence of the likes of uh, Alistair Cook, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, even Kumar Sangakkara is there. All of them have captained their respective sides. David Warner in the shorter version has shown that what a good captain he can be. So, what do you think with this choice of Virat Kohli as the captain of the Test team of the decade?
So it then if you look at the team composition, I just have to go. Then I let me remember the team. I don't know if I
I will
remember it
just
off.
read the I will
I
read the
just
team for
see
you.
you
It
had
is
Warner and Cook, right? Warner,
yeah.
Cook, Smith, Kohli,
So the openers are
Williamson.
yeah the openers are Alistair Cook and David Warner. Kane Williamson is your number three. Virat Kohli bats four. Steve Smith bats five. Kumar Sangakkara at six is the wicket keeper batsman. Number seven is your Ben Stokes as the all rounder. And then the lone spinner in the team is Ravi Ashwin. And then there is Dale Steyn, followed by Stuart Broad and James Anderson. So that is the team.
So so that is the team. I just have one thing that uh, I agree to most things. That's just the one thing is that Sangakkara has not played that much matches as a keeper, but Sangakkara just walks into any such
Yeah.
you know team just because of his sheer ability as a batsman, right? So he has kept in the initial stages of his career, so that's fine. We can take that liberty, but I would bring in a you know because it's this decade. I would ideally want to bring in a left armer in the squad. I know Anderson and Broad have been tremendous,
And
but
who would that be, and who would that person replace in the team?
so it Stain of course picks himself in the side, right?
Yeah, no doubts
Outstanding
about it.
bowler. Yeah, Stain picks himself in the side. Ashwin picks himself in the side. I would go with Anderson because I would go with Anderson. Uh, uh, I would replace Broad with perhaps a Mitchell Johnson, or um,
How
I would go
about
with Mitchell Johnson.
uh, so
Or
I
Trent. I had Trent Bolt in my mind, and I
yeah
had Mitchell Stark also in my mind, but I would still go with Mitchell Johnson because of the he literally won series on his own.
yeah I think from an impact perspective, Mitchell Johnson as a bowler is far ahead. Uh,
Yeah.
with respect to either Trent Bolt or Mitchell Stark, no doubts about it. Um, on the question of the lone spinner in the team, and I know that it's got to be the question of the decade also. I thought that uh, overall, Nathan Lyon as a bowler in the Test arena, even though the numbers are very similar for Lyon and Ashwin, and it is also because possibly mathematically Ashwin's number in the subcontinent, etc., would be better. I haven't really seen the numbers so much, but I know that they're similar numbers. Why not Nathan Lyon in the team? Because I've seen Lyon doing really well, not just in Australia, but also literally winning matches for Australia in the second innings, and he becomes really lethal on especially on non-subcontinental pitches. I've seen that Nathan Lyon is a very difficult bowler to handle.
You can choose Nathan Lyon over Ashwin, but I would still go with Ashwin because primarily because in subcontinent he is unplayable,
Yeah,
and he has been more than decent abroad as well.
yeah,
Plus his numbers speak for himself. So it's a toss up, right? If it was the last decade, and I would have asked you, uh, who would you choose between Warren and Murli, right? If you have to choose one, I would still go with Warren. I know Murli has more wickets than Warren and all of those things. I would still go with Warren if I have to choose between one of them, right? Uh, Again, if you had asked me the same question on an Indian wicket, if you have to choose a World 11, who would you go with? I will go with Kumble,
yeah,
irrespective of Murli or Warren. Kumble is unplayable on these kind of wickets, right?
yeah.
So it's a
Another
toss up. I think I would still have gone with Ashwin.
another name that I would like to sort of draw in, and I particularly was very surprised to see the name not there, and the name belongs to Hashim Amla. I think Hashim Amla is one of the most underrated cricketers or batters to have ever played the game of cricket. His contributions, not just in red ball cricket, but even in the even in the 50 over format, are possibly second to none. The sort of conversion rates, the kind of grace that he brings. What do you have to say if we really had to fit Amla in this squad? And Amla has just about retired. He's a guy who's played the decade, almost the entire decade. If Sangakkara is in
No, no,
that team,
he's another of those all-time South Africa. He walks into the South African all-time 11. I think, as in
so
that
and I think
the 70s.
Amla
South
has
Africa
done
also
well.
has a great history of cricket with before the apartheid and all of those things.
Yeah,
But Amla with all his records, I haven't. I'm just talking from top of my mind. I think he would still walk into that 11 along with Graham Smith as an opener. But anyways, uh, whom would you replace him with? You have the choice of Cook. I think
my money is on
Cook.
my money is on Alistair Cook, because I know that Cook was a gritty opener and he would, but uh, I thought that Amla's impact on Test cricket or red ball cricket, or there was an element of fury in his Test batting as well. That a lot of batsmen, that a lot of people possibly have ignored about Hashim Amla. Hashim Amla was a really fast scorer in a red ball scenario, and obviously from a technique perspective, has he done well in England? Yes, he has. Has he done well in Australia? Absolutely, yes. Has he done well in South Africa? Of course. I mean, he used to. So the question which I ask, even in New Zealand, Hashim Amla has played a couple of brilliant innings. So he's not a failure across geographies. I think he's one of those batsmen who can play spin fantastically well. One of those away batsmen who can play spin brilliantly. He can play the fast bowling brilliantly. He was a tremendous back foot player. I just thought that as I know that Amla's game deteriorated towards the last couple of years, but I thought similar was the case with Alistair Cook as well. And I also feel that Alistair Cook's innings, they came in either high rise uh, uh, you know buildings, or there was nothing. So either there was all or nothing. So Cook would suddenly come with a double century or with a massive century, and then there would be a lean kind of a phase. So nothing to take away from Cook. uh, on a relative scale, I felt that possibly Hashim Amla was a better fit as an opener, if not as a number three. Hashim Amla and David Warner opening, followed by Kane Williams.
I would still put Cook in because Cook's numbers speak for themselves. He was almost on the verge of breaking Tendulkar's numbers. Has won a series in India, which is absolutely
Yeah, it
like
is tough.
yeah, absolutely not easy. And he himself scored a ton of runs along with Kevin Peterson.
Yeah.
So I would still put I know Amla is you have to leave somebody out, right? So, but you're right. As in, you can replace Amla with whatever he has done, even by Kane. Joe Root is not there,
Yeah,
right?
Joe Root is not
So
there. I also felt that possibly there was a little bit of a recency effect in the way this team has been picked up.
yeah, it always is.
Yeah.
It always is. You see the all-time World 11s and all of those things. Garincha doesn't feature in some
Uh,
all-time World 11 in football. I don't know. I don't know how that's possible, but uh, that's that, that's how it is. So it's okay, Matlab. You have the liberty to choose any World 11 you want, but you can say that Root and Amla deserve their places. If somebody would have chosen, and in fact, why not AB de Villiers? He also played
yeah, he could
for
be
the
a
better part of.
he could be a
He could be a
wicket-keeper
wicket
batsman.
keeper, and
Yeah,
he gives you a additional batsman, right? So it's debatable. You could have chosen either of the three. It's fine, but I think more or less they've chosen a decent team. I would still have gone
it
gone
is.
with the
It
left.
is. It. See, obviously, end of the day, Didi, you can only pick up 11 people. There will be some people, deserving people, who will be left out, and which is why people like us then can possibly talk about those issues. So now coming on to this team and going back to the first question is that, let's say we have taken this team as is, no problems whatsoever. I still feel that Virat Kohli as a captain of the team of the decade. So what went against Kane Williamson, or what went against Steve Smith? Why not Steve Smith? I can understand possibly because of the that entire scam which happened and stuff like that. But then Kane Williamson is a very able leader himself with the kind of limited resources he has always. I think he marshals his troops really well.
I would have gone with Cook as the captain, but
Hmm.
anyways, when you have such a star-started lineup, you don't need a captain actually, right? So
Yeah.
I think in a World 11, captain doesn't matter. But if I had to choose, I would have perhaps chosen Cook uh, or perhaps a Kane Williamson. But it's their choice, and Kohli has also won a lot of matches for India, so they would have gone ahead with it.
Maybe captaincy will bring more out of him.
I don't know, but I would have gone with Cook for sure. I would have gone with Cook.
My personal choice would have been, because, like I said, that I would have traded places, traded
Yeah.
Hashim Amla for Cook, and therefore
Mm.
my choice is definitely Kane Williamson, because for with so many super stars in the team, you need someone who is more grounded and is able to sort of tie people together. So that's my only logic, nothing else.
Yeah, it's a nice choice. It's a nice choice. I would have gone with either Cook or Williamson,
Yeah,
but my
and I
first
think
choice would still have been.
both of them were very they were not very aggressive, like visibly aggressive captains. They were all
Yeah.
keeping it to
Yeah.
themselves kind of personality. So now let's
Yes.
quickly switching uh, to the first. We are in January, and January is the month of Australian Open, which also is tennis. So I don't know what is the scene. Is it happening? Not happening?
It's happening, and it's happening in February this year.
Okay.
And It's happening in February this year. The big announcement, of course, is Federer withdrawing, still not recovered from his surgery. I think for the first time since 1999, he's not traveling to Australia.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, as a Federer fan, I'm not happy, but I think looking at his overall future, I think it's the right decision. I hope he recovers in time for Wimbledon and
So that we can see
the
him
rest of.
in the
Yeah,
Wimbledon.
it's an Olympics year as well, so it's always been his dream to kind of win an Olympic gold. So I'm sure he would have done his calculations. The interesting thing, you brought in tennis, but I am really excited about two 39-year-olds and almost to be 40-year-olds. Never ever have we seen such. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is doing some wonderful stuff at AC Milan at
Yeah,
almost 40,
yeah.
and the kind of tennis and we keep on saying I don't know. I have read a lot of tennis history. I have watched a lot of tennis matches. I don't remember a 39-year-old playing tennis so beautifully.
Yeah.
Never. Okay. Federer could not have converted a match point at Wimbledon. That's a different discussion altogether. But I'm just talking about playing the game efficiently, right?
Yeah.
If you look at that match, I'm going back to the 2019 Wimbledon. He was 38 then. Uh, Statistically, he was ahead of Novak in every department. Just he could not win the big points, which has been his problem against Novak.
I think, and
But
I
I'm just
think
saying that
credit
I'm just
needs
saying
to
that
be given to Novak. I thought that was
absolutely,
that
without
was
a doubt,
yeah, that was Federer's match to lose, actually.
yes. But you have to give it to Novak. Even 2020 Australian Open, Thiem was playing the match of his life, but Novak just knew how to grind him out and win the big
Yeah,
points.
he just kind of hangs on. I also feel that Novak is one of those players, possibly the only player who's been able to beat Nadal in his own game of attrition on a tennis
Absolutely,
court.
and in fact, what I'm really hoping in 2021 is that you brought in a point about what will happen when Anderson and Broad will retire, right?
Yeah.
I'm bringing the same point here in tennis.
Mhm.
As fans of Federer or as following the big three, almost three generations of tennis players have been wiped out because of the dominance of these three people.
Yeah.
And for some point of time, Murray and Wawrinka. I really hope that the Medvedevs and the Tsitsipas and Thiem and Zverev come to the big stage and start winning the slams.
Yeah.
Because what will happen is that if these three keep on winning, a time will come when by the time these three retire and you will have a situation what is there in women's tennis now.
Women's tennis, exactly. Absolutely agree.
What
There will
happened
be.
with Justin Hanna retiring at the peak? She was the only player who was troubling Serena Williams
Yeah. Yeah.
consistently, and she retired eerily before the French Open in
Yeah.
2007,
Yeah.
where she was the favorite to win. And what has happened is that so many people have won, slams have come and gone away. The women's tennis has gone into disarray, right? Serena Williams is still holding it. You have Naomi Osaka playing well now. You still have Simona Halep winning a few slams. You have Kibito. You have players coming in and out, but you don't have the
It
kind of dominance that a Graf or an
yeah,
Navratilova or an Ebert or a King.
it
You
really
don't
has
have the
become very
consistency, right?
random. It has become very
Yes.
random, actually.
Which is why this year is very, very important. I know it will be very difficult for someone to beat Nadal in French Open. It will be. We saw what he did this year, when people were saying that with heavy conditions and all of those things, he just literally massacred all theory and all experts, right?
Yeah,
So I just hope that these four players end up, or any of the other upcoming players. You have Denis Shapovalov, who is one of the very unique left-handed, single-handed backhand players,
yeah,
uh, coming from Canada, to do something at the Grand Slam, because it is the first, you said, right, the first thing, England and West Indies playing in the bubble, once they broke that, then everyone started playing it, right?
see,
Similarly, in a singular game like tennis, you have to have these players win slams. Only then they will believe that they can beat. Otherwise, what happens is, when it comes to critical points, you know that Djokovic or a Nadal or a Federer will
see,
come through.
see, did he more than the who plays the critical points better? I think all sport, and not just tennis, sport is also about stories. It is also about a few falls, uh, giving rise to a few players, a few new faces. I remember, in the days where there would be no or very limited internet, early 2000s and stuff. So my how I knew Roger Federer was first was that uh, he was the mixed double partners of Martina Hingis in the Hoffman Cup. That's how I
Correct.
started to know this guy. He was a shadow of Martina Hingis because Martina Hingis was the big star
Correct.
in lawn tennis, not Roger Federer. And then suddenly, obviously, I used to follow Pete Sampras, and I thought it was the Wimbledon of 2002 or 2002.
One.
Yeah,
Yep.
one or two,
2001.
one of these two, where Roger defeated Pete Sampras in the third or the fourth round, something like that. Gave him a really early exit, and then I thought that was the time I really hated this guy because I knew him as a sidekick to Martina Hingis. I had never seen his game. Obviously, we would only know players by reading articles of what sports journalists would write about them, not actually by
Correct.
seeing them so much. And I think the next year I read an article on Roger Federer that said that Roger Federer is Pete Sampras plus a beautiful backhand, and I read it in Sportstar. And so that was the explanation of how the author had described Roger Federer. And then after a couple of years, when Federer was at the peak of his powers, 2005 6, something like that, um, I remember reading an article or something like a statement from an expert saying that when Roger plays another guy, it's like one guy is trying to play the perfect tennis, and the other person continuously disturbing him, something like that. So those were the kind of descriptors that people would use for Roger Federer. But I remember from the heartbreak loss of Pete Sampras in Wimbledon at the hands of Roger Federer, is that I really started to sort of take note of that guy more as a disgruntled fan of Pete Sampras rather than a fan of Roger Federer. But then over the years, as you see players evolving, you know that why this guy was actually able to turn the tables on somebody like a Pete Sampras so early in Wimbledon. And
Yeah,
I
and,
think
and of course, a lot of things have happened in tennis. The grass has become
uh,
slower, and all of courts have become slower to
so
make it much more
the
television
point,
friendly, and all of those things.
yeah, the point which basically I want to make is that I really hope that in 2021 we get a lot of these moments where a young guy comes in and beats Nadal on clay, beats Joker in Australian Open, something like that.
Exactly.
That really sets the
That is
dominates
what
the
excited me
example.
about the 90s tennis, right?
Yeah.
If the 90s tennis, you had a Richard Krajicek coming and beating Sampras at Wimbledon.
Yes.
Of course, we have
Yes.
had a Stakowski beating Federer, or a Soderling beating Nadal. But what has happened is that men's tennis had reached a stage, or still has reached a stage, where you have reached a level of boredom. The winners will be between these three
These.
people, right?
Yes.
It has reached a formula based result. That what happens is, it is good for the sport, it is good for the followers, but in the short term, but in the long term, once this vacuum gets created by these players leaving, then you will have a situation where you don't know. Which is why the player that I'm really looking forward to this year is not any of the names that I mentioned. Is a player by the name of
Okay.
Yannick Sinner from Italy. Uh, is one of the very few young players who has his head over his shoulders. He lost to Nadal in this year's French Open, but the manner in which he played and the manner in which he reacted after the points made me go back to 2005 when Nadal was a youngster.
Mm.
He never ever, Nadal respects the sport. You see so many players, destroying rackets. I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing Nadal ever destroying a racket, right? So you win tournaments by your mind, with your mind, because at that level, almost everyone has a game to play at almost like with a variation of 5-10%. But your mind also comes in because you're playing a solo sport, right? You have to convert that match point. You
Yeah.
you haven't won a match till one of our common friends says that in chess or in any sport, the hardest thing is to win a one match, right?
Yeah.
Federer was like so many times against Djokovic, so many match points, and similarly there are so many other players, right? Coming, Djokovic last year had 6 match points against him while he was playing in Dubai with Gael Monfils. Yet he won because the heart. It's like you have to win that point, right?
Yeah.
And your opponent is in your mind. So why I rate really Novak Djokovic really high is because very early in his career he said Nadal is beatable on clay,
Yeah.
right? He had the mindset and he beat Nadal on clay. So I'm really looking forward in tennis this year that somebody new comes out and we have a good mix of people, especially in the newer generation, from where we can look forward to. And of course, this is the Olympics here, so I just hope the years and years of practice in so many of the Olympic sports. There are people, says tennis, football, basketball, cricket, even hockey. There are other big championships, right? But there are so many sports person who just play for the Olympics.
Yeah.
They only for example, shooting, for example, swimming, gymnastics. Those who follow the sport at a very deep level will know the results of tournaments which these people take part. But what defines them is the Olympics, right? Say in tennis or football, or say in other, Olympics doesn't define you, right? Of course, it's there, but for other sports persons, especially, 4 years of hard work to achieve that fame and success. And I just hope that the vaccine allows the COVID to subside, and we see an Olympics this year.
Absolutely. I think fantastic, Didi. Wonderful listening to you as always and talking to you at the beginning of the year. So thanks for your time and thanks for coming over to sort of give us a good roundup of not just 2020 but also your views and expectations. Uh, from 2021 with respect to not just cricket but sports in totality. And as fans of sports, let's just hope that the year is a better one, at least as compared to 2020. What possibly could be worse than the year that we all saw.
We just
So
hope that we just hope we don't jinx, and
yeah,
we just keep our fingers crossed and hope.
so let's keep our fingers crossed and let's move into January with some good solid cricket in Australia, followed by an
I think the
Australian
good
Open.
solid cricket is we're expecting some good solid cricket, not just in Australia. I don't know if you've been following, but the cricket in South Africa and even in New Zealand has been tremendous. Pakistan
Yeah,
was 1 wicket away from drawing that match,
yeah,
which
yeah.
would have helped India in the World Test Championship. But New Zealand just hung on to win, that match.
It was
Sri
a
Lanka was Sri Lanka showed a lot of character, but unfortunately they have like a lot of 5 players. I think of them have been injured.
yeah.
One of them really, so. I'm looking forward to cricket in all 3 countries, and of course the EPL is on, and Manchester United have kind of curled back to the top of the EPL standings after a
Which
long
is
time.
great for
So
a lot of Man U fans because I think it's coming home after a really really long period of time for them.
yes.
So on
On
that
that
note,
note,
yes, thank
thanks
you
a
so
lot.
much.
It was a good start to the year for sport in general. And as I said, first of all, wishing Saurav Ganguly a very quick and fast recovery. And looking forward to speaking with you soon.
Absolutely. See you soon next Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you so much.